You all are getting a notice on your screen. Just go ahead and click continue. You're accepting and knowing that I am recording this. And welcome again to Zoom Basics. I'm Rebecca. I'm going to be your guide through a lot of the settings that are really simple to take care of. You'll do those settings once in your account and then use them from there on. And if you have questions, please post them in our chat and I will catch those in a little bit. So without further ado, just wanted to point out that your students do not have to have a Zoom account. They do not have to be signed in to anything. Zoom is a tool that you have to be 18 or older to have a free license, and so they likely will not have an account, even if it is free. This feature where a student or a parent could join from their browser was gone for a little bit, but Zoom has brought it back. In the spring, Zoom was having some security issues. They have been on a 3-month, they had a 90-day project, and they've tightened up their security a lot in that time. So they've brought back the join from browser feature, which I love. So if a parent doesn't have Zoom installed, and all it would be some type of plugin or for their browser, don't worry, they don't have to have it. Now that is a setting I'll show you. You will have to turn that on in your account. So that shows on your screen for your meetings. Other ways a person can join is if they clicked download and run Zoom, it will pop up a window that says, okay, I'm going to download a little tool, but I have to click it to open it. And then what you get during that download is a little package. Now these are the windows for these are the screens for a Windows computer. And if you're on a Chromebook, it may already be pushed out by your Google admin. That way students don't have to worry about it whatsoever. They click your Zoom link, Zoom is already installed on their Chromebook, and they move forward. But let's say you're having a parent orientation or open house for your classroom, then you're going to have parents during their first time possibly downloading. So also maybe make a note to them to try and join 10 minutes early. That way if they have to install something, they get that done in time. After somebody would click that Zoom package on their computer, then it would display this picture for them to install, and they just follow the simple steps. It's very quick. The Zoom toolbar, that's what you see across the bottom of your screen. If you're on a mobile device, you do have to install the mobile app. So the Zoom app for your tablet or for your smartphone, that is necessary to join those methods. Now the toolbar would look slightly different on a mobile device, but a person would just tap on their mobile device and they would see icons similar. And if they needed to see participants, that icon is the same, and they might not see all the buttons, so they have to click on more and then they can see the chat. But for the rest of us, we get this nice ribbon across the bottom of the screen. You can mute yourself or unmute, clicking the microphone in the left. You can do the same for your video. You mute your video. And there's a little caret or arrow to the right of video. So if you have a document camera plugged in, that's how you switch on the fly from your web camera to your document camera. If you have a desktop computer and have no built-in web camera, but you do have a document camera, repurpose your document camera. If it has an angled head, you can angle that to face you and use a document camera for your webcam. And you would just change that setting by clicking the arrow there. Participants, I'm skipping over invite, we'll get into that later, but participants is how you can see all of the students' names. Also, there are nonverbal features built into Zoom. So if you want them to give you a yes, a no, a hand, they could raise their hand. So let's practice that right now. I'm going to stop in this presentation. I want you to show me that you understand, you can see the participants panel, and click the yes. It's a green circle with a check in it. And we'll see how that goes. I want to see how many we get. So Barb and Barbie, Crystal, they're giving me a green circle with a check inside. Jackie, nice job, Jacqueline. Jason, Jody, and Josh. Kendra's giving me, she was playing. She gave me a little coffee break, a little coffee cup icon. And I'm seeing too where Kendra responded into chat. You're going to find that your participants will do one or the other. So you kind of have to have one eye on participants, one eye on the chat in case somebody does that. And that's fine. It's just, we want to be sure everybody is able to see the tools that are available. If they join from browser, they will be limited. So they might not see the icons. And I even have another screen in the future here, slide that'll show you. So I'm pretty happy. And this is something you do during a meeting, just like you would check for understanding in a classroom. I am checking for you to respond. I know you're engaged, except for Jennifer. We lost Jennifer somehow. No response from her. And we'll see if she put something in the chat instead. And Jennifer, if you find chat, you can go ahead and give me a yes, because that's what Kendra did. Okay, so we have a yes from Jennifer. And now I can proceed with class. Just as if you would hold up class in person, you're gonna hold up and wait till you make sure you have 100% participation. So now, a few tips on there. Those little light bulbs are showing you how you temporarily unmute. Just hold your space bar, it's very handy. And then the Alt will show or hide your tools. Now I'm not going through every tool on this screen. We'll come to more of them later. And I will say this with reactions, not every student sees those. So be cautious about asking for responses using that tool. That's been my experience. Maybe Zoom has wrapped up and made updates. But I've had classes where the students did not see the reactions icon. The note at the bottom says using the client. Well, what does that mean? So you can just use Zoom with the Chrome or the browser add-on that got installed, or you can go to the Zoom website and actually download an entire Zoom application. Fancy word, client. So if you go to Zoom's website and download the Zoom program itself, you have a whole list of hotkeys and keyboard shortcuts you can go explore on your own. Since you have a link to that presentation, you have a link to that hotkeys list. As I sat in this class, I had to admit participants. The reason why? I enabled waiting room. So we highly, let's just say you better turn on waiting room. You don't want kids joining this meeting without you. So I even saw a few of you this morning. It was around, I don't know, 7:30, where some of you must have clicked the link, because what it did, it sent me an email and says, you have participants waiting. And so you left. It was no big deal. But I wanted to tell you that when you have waiting room enabled and somebody tries to enter your meeting without you being present, you get an email notice. So it's very safe, very secure. The whole business about Zoom bombings in the spring was people who put their links out there live, did not have waiting room turned on, and they just weren't practicing safe settings. And that's why we're talking here about settings. So a little chime will ring so you can audibly hear somebody entering. Then you have to either click waiting room, and off to the right is what the waiting room looks like. So I had one person waiting. And today I was clicking and checking people off on my attendance sheet manually. So I click admit, then I checked you off and kept going down the list. So that's just a little bit about procedure on how I start You can join a Zoom just by your phone. So you're only going to get the audio. I also put in my classes, if you're joining by Zoom and you have a weak internet connection, I want to be sure you get the audio. I would say that audio is 75% of what you need, and you need that to be clear. Again, I'm just, using earbuds with a built-in mic. It doesn't take anything fancy, but make sure your audio is premium and clear so that if the picture's a little grainy, if the picture hiccups a little bit, that doesn't hurt as much as bad audio. So you can encourage students to join by phone, and that way they're ensuring they get a good signal and good sound. And this is what it looks like in the film strip of somebody who's just joined by a phone. Now the chat, there are choices. You can turn it completely off. You may decide to start your school year that way if your students are working remotely with you. So that way you can focus on the simpler tools, make sure your content is getting out there. You can also have public chat, or you can make it so you have public and private. And I allow, you guys are adults, I allow you guys to try out the private. Here's a note though, I can't see what you're typing to each other, so you guys could be passing notes virtually. I also, when a recording of this is captured, I only get my private and the public chat digest. I won't get yours. So I really don't know what you're talking about there on the side. So we highly recommend a setting for students. Do not use private chat at all. The participants, you guys already experienced that a little bit because you participated by giving me a response, but renaming, that's something you'll want to cover with your students. And it might be something you have to guide them the first couple of times, but after a while, if their computer is shared with someone else in their household, then you're gonna need to have them change their name. Some people will never have to address it at all. There's then the mute and unmute icons. So I, as a host, can click your microphone and mute you. And then these are the nonverbal responses that are built in here. And so a student can raise their hand. You all gave me yeses, that you found the participants panel. And there's a few more bonus ones in there too that are fun. Use those every so often to check for understanding. If you have students who possibly did raise their hand, they're trying to get your attention as if they were sitting in your classroom. So I want to see if you guys found the raise hand nonverbal icon. So click on your participants and I'd like you to raise your hands. We'll raise the roof here with all of our hands. So Jason, whoops, it wasn't Jason. Rick, nice job. Neil, Paul. Oh, see the men are leading us here. Kira, Barbie, you guys are doing good. See lots of blue hands on my screen. Now I got a few more. Good, Barb. Oh, she was clapping there. She found another one. Jackie, two Jackies. Jennifer, Kendra, Nick. Okay, good job, Jennifer. And so what's happening for me in my participants panel, all of you are normally organized alphabetically by first name, but because you're responding to me, it is taking all of you who have non-verbally responded, it's grouping you at the top, and then it's putting Kendra at the bottom. What's going on, Kendra? And maybe you don't see those icons because she used our chat before. And so then you can look at the bottom of your list for those students who aren't engaged, and you can call them out like I did to Kendra. So I want to show you another screen here. This is what the icons might look like if somebody has joined from a browser. And I said there are limits, and so it might not be a blue hand. We might just say raise your hand. You could do a visual, raise your hand if all the students have their video on. You don't have to use the built-in nonverbals. Controls of your participants. You can do some of these in your settings, but let's say you want to give a few free minutes at the end of class. So you can allow them on the fly to unmute themselves. You can also, that play, enter, and exit chime, I really like that one. I always have that on for myself because I get a little whoosh noise if somebody has left. And I want to know, did somebody drop off and who was it? So I'm also watching my participants number. I see 25. So long as my number stays at 25, everybody's joined technically. Do I know if they're sitting in their chair? That's where the nonverbals come in handy. And so I just lost somebody. I'm down to 24. I bet they're testing me. Sometimes if they have weak internet too, they might drop off. Now, you can lock your meeting. So that could be something where you require students to come in at a certain time. We might want to have some grace and flexibility early on, but once we establish that everybody's connection is strong and they're able, then you want to lock it so nobody jumps into your meeting. And now Kendra says in our chat, do you know if do you have a way to know if it is a weak internet or they actually signed off? I have that verbal sound, or sorry, that audio that the exit chime just chimed. So I did lose one person. Then I'd have to go look at my participants list to see who, because their name isn't there anymore. So that's a little tough. Be nice if there was a little shadow or if their name was grayed out, but it's not that robust. Also there is a setting to put participants in the waiting room. So I'll show you in settings where you do that. But on the fly, you can control. And if you saw there's a lower all hands. I'm just clicking clear all actually in my panel. I'm using a Zoom background. Honestly, this is my first class where I'm able to use a Zoom background. My computer did not meet the standards to do this. And they had an update about a week ago, and for whatever reason, whatever was in their update, then I'm able to do a Zoom background. Now, I just saw who I lost. It was Courtney, and Courtney is back now. So I don't know if Courtney was testing me or if Courtney had a weak internet connection, but I have no idea what type of strength or signal my participants have whatsoever. So maybe Courtney will press her space bar and tell us. We lost you, Courtney. Was it your connection or did you test us?
I did not test you. My computer died.
Oh no. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, if for a dead computer, you came back pretty fast. Okay, and she put it in our chat, her computer died. Boy, there you go. There's a basics. Make sure your computer's plugged in or fully charged. Also, one thing, make sure you don't have your audio muted. I was in a connection with my daughter's teacher last spring. I could hear her. She could not hear us, and I couldn't figure it out. Well, I had muted my whole speaker system, and so my earbuds were delivering my sound through my microphone, but I couldn't get any audio, and it was a very simple issue. So more tips like that are going to be in our best practices class. Backgrounds, though, they will draw. Let me go back to that. They will draw on a connection or a signal. So you, in your settings, can disable Zoom backgrounds. If you think a student will pick something inappropriate, then you can disable them. And then maybe that's a fun thing. That's a reward to a hard week of being remote or online. Then you can say, all right, Friday is Zoom background day. Of course, keep it school appropriate. And then students can be rewarded. Again, though, depending on their connection and depending on their computer's capabilities, not all students may be able to do a background. So make sure you're being fair and equal to all your students. You are possibly in a full screen mode. And as I want you to start adjusting settings for your own account, you're going to want to exit full screen. So when you see across the top where it says you're viewing Rebecca's screen, you're going to want to click View Options and drop down the list to exit full screen. You might even have icons or a little label at the top right of your screen that says Exit Full Screen if it's not in the drop down. And other goodies you see in there too is hiding the video panel. There's a feature called side-by-side mode. So that's really nice to have the thumbnail of the person on one side and their screen that they're sharing on the other. So very nice features in there. Annotate is another one. And I think I have it coming later, so I won't speak about it yet. The gallery view. So we have a lot of choices. Just because I am viewing a gallery doesn't mean that you're seeing a gallery. So this is what it would look like. Some people have video on, some have their video muted, and then up at the top right corner, I see that I can switch. We have speaker view, that's a choice. And in speaker view, you could have the thumbnails across the top, like a film strip, or off to the right. And so what I have done for this meeting, I've actually minimized mine so that my recording is clean. I could have been down to a single panel, but I honestly have minimized that little video thumbnail completely. So then it'll just record my shared screen. Shared screen. A lot of choices here. I happen to have two monitors, so it says desktop 1, desktop 2. There's a built-in whiteboard. It's very vanilla. It doesn't save where you can edit it again. It does let you capture what you've drawn. If you install the client, so that meant the full-blown application is installed, the program is on your computer, you can go to their website and pick up an add-in, like a little plug-in for iPhone, iPad. It will let you display that to your audience. So that's a little feature. Also in here, we see that there are ways that you can just grab one tab if you don't want to display the entire window. And you'll see here too that other windows I had open on that day when I took the screenshot, they show up here too. So you can share screen. A very important feature down there in the lower left-hand corner, share computer sound. So in the beginning I had music. My music was much too loud, but I checked that box and that's how I got my music to be included in my screen share. Here's that whiteboard, and any student can draw and practice with it. And so make sure that's a feature you want to be using and allowing when you do a screen share. This is just a computer view and an iPad view. The computer, you'll see that the tools will be floating. A mobile device like an iPad, the tools are across the bottom. What that whiteboard, you cannot bring in, say, a PDF or anything. So that's why I say it's very vanilla, very basic. And I have a suggestion for some other tools that you can learn about in our best practices in our tips class. When you're sharing your screen, you have further controls. These can be clicked on the fly. So if you guys even go down to the bottom toolbar in our meeting right now and click that arrow, you're going to see settings. Now, maybe it's not letting you do anything more. Maybe you can only click the share screen. But when you click the arrow to the right, that will pop up these advanced sharing options. And I have it set only one participant at a time. There are options for multiples or who can share. So if any of you try to share, it's possible that I have allowed this. Let me see what I have for you guys. Because if you're trying to share, you might not be able to do anything. And my settings are coming up behind a screen. So I don't think I'm allowing you guys right now in this class. If anybody wants to put in our chat, if they have tried clicking share screen, is it coming up that you're blocked? And Kendra's asking in our chat, do you have to do all the share settings before you start? No. Actually, that screen that I'm showing you right now is during a meeting, so you can adjust them on the fly. So share is blocked. Good, it's not coming up. Very good, everybody. I'm glad. Thanks, Jody, Melissa, and Barb, and Lacey. So back to you, Kendra. Your first meeting, you did a lot of wrong things. Share is blocked. And we find out that maybe we want to change something on the fly. Don't worry. That's where you click the little arrow to the right of the green square, and then you change those settings during the meeting. And that happens to us a lot. Our director, he will have that blocked and he says, oh, well, wait a minute. And he goes and adjusts the settings so we can share. I would say the default though, I recommend to have it only the host. If you don't have tools like a dry erase board or document camera, you can also use a mobile device. This will be demonstrated in the Zoom best practices and tips class using that iPad, iPhone plugin. So that is an alternative option. Another setting is to notify your audience, hey, I'm recording, and I prefer to have that pop up so you're all very aware and you're the ones taking active consent. Big, long debates. Can you record students? Should you? Check with your district. I'm hearing lots of no's, but it doesn't mean you can't use Zoom to just record yourself. So Google Meet is not going to have that feature after September 30th unless you pay. Zoom Basic, which is the free version, has a time limit of your meetings of 40 minutes, which is a little under maybe an average class time, but the free version will still let you record. And some of you are getting the licensed version in your school districts. So check to find out. You don't have to record with anybody else in the meeting. Just do your presentation solo, and then you'll have that to deliver for students who've missed your class. In your settings, you'll see these nice analytics where you can see who has viewed. You know, you have 2 views here, but that's something where you could also download your video. We'll get to those settings here in a little bit. There is a poll feature. That is something you cannot generate on the fly. I'll show you where to make it, but I have been burned enough on the poll that it didn't pop up, or it popped up behind somebody's window. A student on a Chromebook, it took 3 times for it to pop up for them. I'm just not gonna sell the poll to many of you. I'm okay with just passing and letting you know about it, but I want to let you know that it's an option. So you can display the results, and then there is another feature in case you need, if you're having an IEP meeting, the feature is to sign or have somebody annotate on your screen. So that is something where you can request remote control, and they're actually signing a document or whatever is on your screen share. Annotate would be over top, so I kind of misspoke there for a moment, but requesting remote control lets them control your mouse, and then they are actually signing digitally or drawing digitally on the document you are sharing. So here is a little bit more about that remote control, where the host, the teacher, can click remote control. All the participants who can are going to be listed. Now, here's a test for you guys. You need to put this in the chat. Remote control has a list of people. I also have in the screenshot the number of participants. What is the difference between the list in remote control and the list in participants. I want you to put that in the chat if you see any difference. It's okay if you don't see it and you want to just type no difference. Okay, so Jody, you're looking at our live meeting. I want you to consider just the screenshot on the presentation. Okay, Lacey says 3 are not able to. Okay, Melissa was a little more detailed. She says Anita and Rebecca aren't listed in remote control. Barb says 3. Neil's like, what? Thanks, Neil. I want to know if it is confusing what I'm asking, and that's okay. So Judy says only Sabrina. She's close. So Paul's answering, these must only be those who have a mouse. iPad probably has full app. That was good, Melissa. And ditto to Neil. So Jacqueline, you're like, what is she asking? And the student, Anita, isn't listed. Okay, I think I got enough. You guys are good. I mean, you can keep responding. So when in the screenshot, when the host, that is Rebecca Rosecrans, see how it says host next to the name? The host clicked remote control. All of those people who are able are listed. So Sabrina's iPad is able, from browser is able. And I purposely named that computer that way so I knew that's the participant who joined from by clicking join from browser. Over here on the right, the host is the owner, so they wouldn't be listed. Anita, well, what's wrong with her? Anita could not do a remote control. And here's why. If you're on a Chromebook, there are some Zoom features that don't work, and that's one of them. So a lot of your students are going to be taking home Chromebooks, and so we want to be sure that if we're going to use a feature like this, we're aware they have a limit. And it's okay, it's just don't use remote control with a user who has a Chromebook. But that was the difference. I know that was kind of tough, guys. So I hope that clarifies it. Yeah, from browser was a named participant. Sorry about that. Thanks, Lacey, for mentioning that in the chat. How do you get out of a meeting? End a meeting. And I know I need to answer the question, how do you set up a meeting? And we're going to get to that soon here. We're really close to these slides, ending these slides, and we're going to get to settings here real quick. These are additional resources for you to access, so feel free to click any of those later on. I even have more I have collected over the summer, and I'll get those out to you guys in a follow-up email. And somebody who's watching this as a recording, I have all our resources listed in the video description. So there's my advanced settings. That was hiding from me. Now then, you may want to exit full screen so that you can get into your own Zoom settings. If multitasking like that is just going to drive you bananas, you know, looking at my screen and then going back to your own, that's okay. You really don't need to see my screen. You simply need to look at your own settings and listen to my voice. But that's how I'm going to proceed for now. And we're going forward into an account. So I'm already at the Zoom website. Let me just quickly show you the home page. And you would see this up here at the top to sign in. Now, I want to ask, and you might not know the answer. So in our participants panel here, I want you to give me a nonverbal. Give me a yes if you know your school has purchased Zoom for the next school year. If your school has not, like you know for certain, they have not purchased Zoom for the next school year, give me a no. And if you're unsure, then just give me a little clock. That's going to make you look for that one. That's found in the more. You just don't know what they have, if they're purchasing or not. So Barbie's not sure. Barbie, I know Northwestern did purchase in the spring, but that is something I don't know for the fall. The spring licenses had ended at the end of June. So if you had a license and you're like wondering why it's not working, that could be why. So Crystal and Jackie are telling me, yep, their district has purchased. We have a lot of unknowns, a lot of those clocks. Josh is saying yes, and Kendra. So find that out from your district, because otherwise you're just going to use a basic account. That's the free version. Your limit will be that some are on numbers, like you can't web stream, and your audience is limited to 100, which I think you guys are probably good. I hope you don't have over 100 in a class. But the one that will hurt you is you can only have a meeting for 40 minutes. They basically give you a lot of it for free, but that's the one that will probably hurt you. So whether you're on a Zoom account that's free or licensed, you would go to their website, you'd click sign in, and you'd enter in your details. All right, so I'm entering in my details and I sign in. Now this is the point where if you wanted, go to the top of your screen and exit full screen, and you can go to your own setting tabs. Otherwise, just sit back and watch if you'd like. So on the left are the different setting areas. And you can see here where you can set up your profile. So you can change your profile picture and pick something new. You can also change your name. So if you don't like that it has your first name and you want to have, you know, a Mr. or a Mrs., you can. And you can change your job title and details like this, and I can save that. Also in this list in your profile is this personal meeting ID. Now mine's masked out, but I made that my phone extension because that's a number I know, and I use that often. A good security practice would be not using the same one over and over, but I'm only sharing mine with other professionals. I'm not tweeting it out. I'm not putting it on social media like Facebook. So I feel pretty safe that I'm protected. And I also have a meeting room, the waiting room, turned on. So I'm not going to get Zoom bombed because somebody just got this number. But I like to reuse this, and then I could establish, hey, this is my times of day when I have office hours, and all you all need to know is my personal meeting ID number. So it's very simple, and I could copy this link and send it via email or paste it into my Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever LMS you're using. If you're in Progress Book, your classroom information page. So those are your settings that you'd want to check out. And if you don't like what they made up for you, you can edit. Also, let's see what else is down here. This is where, if I look at the top, I just want to make sure there's nothing I'm going to miss. If I look up here in my profile, okay, I'm going to go ahead to meeting next. And I'm actually working from the right here, personal meeting room. So when I click personal meeting room, this is kind of like saying, these are my defaults. This is my template to work from. That way in the future, if I used a gadget or an extension just to schedule a meeting, then it's basically going to pull these settings. So there's that meeting ID that came from my profile. Security, yep, I have waiting room, that's already turned on. I even get an invite link, so you can have this nice personal landing page. And if I don't like a setting that I see here, I just click edit this meeting. Now, what I typically do, whatever I put in here is what I put in for my settings when a meeting is on the fly. But no, if you don't adjust meeting settings on the fly, it's going to pull in these settings. So that's where I turned on waiting room under my meetings, and I'm in my personal meeting room. I can change that number if I didn't do it on my profile. Coming down the list, and video. What do you want? Do you want participants' video on when they join? We have one school district who they want the students to have video off. So it's a challenge because you can decide that they join a meeting with this off, but they can still turn it back on. And again, classroom management, what are the rules for these meetings? Is video supposed to be off? I started you off with off. That's what you should have kept. And then you follow typical discipline. But with you, your adults, I leave that on. Do you want to allow people to have the option to join just by phone? Sure. That way, they could at least listen in if they are at a doctor's appointment and they're in the waiting room, or if they have no battery power or their computer died, then you would be able to go ahead and have them listen in. And you could hear their voice too. The *6 is how they would mute and unmute themselves. That's the same whether it's Google Meet or in Zoom. And then meeting options. Make sure you do not allow people to join before you. That should be clear. And if they were adults, that's one thing. If they're students, we do not want them conducting a meeting without you in the room. Just like you wouldn't want them in your classroom without you being present. You can decide to mute them upon entry, so that saves you time from clicking every participant and muting them. And I would not record meetings automatically, and actually we discussed, you may not be recording anything with a student in it. If you have a co-teacher who you want to always get these invites, you can put them in there, and that way they get an email saying that they're going to be a co-host. If they're a licensed person, then they will be able to see this on their account as well. So any changes you make, you can click on save. So that's just the default. Kind of think of it that way, the personal meeting room. And a question that was asked many, many moons in our chat, how do you set up a Zoom meeting? That happens in the meetings section under upcoming meetings, and voila, schedule a new meeting. You click there. It's pulling in those profile settings. Here we can rename this. We can call this so we have our conferences possibly, and maybe I'm just going to have this open for 2 hours and people jump in and out and they know their scheduled time. It's an option to have a description. You schedule your date and time, so it wouldn't do this yet. Maybe closer here, and your times. Now, it's going to be a start time. How long is it going to last? I said 2 hours. And then what's your time zone? Looks good. Your time zone might be off, so that might be something you need to adjust right now if you're following with your own account. If you like to have this appear over and over, there is a reoccurring meeting option. That's good if you're doing office hours. Here's this meeting ID. So that's another layer of security. If it generates automatically, then you don't know what that number is until you schedule this. I'm lazy, I said, so I pick personal meeting and it pulls in my ID, the ID that I set. my office phone number. Also then, security. Get that box checked. Make sure you have waiting room. If you want another layer, boy, I mean, I'm telling you, no one's going to get into this Zoom meeting unless they have the passcode. You let them in, etc. So we have control. I don't go as far as putting a passcode on my meetings. Also, in the video section, I just make this the same that was in my personal meeting room. If I have them off in there, I have them off here too, or on. And then audio, same setting. I allow both. Basically the same choices here and save. So now that has just been scheduled. My meeting, I could join it from right here. So if I don't have the full-blown program, that client version installed, I just click here to join. Also, you have this host a meeting. That's really on the fly. That's saying right now. I was on the phone with a parent. They want to show me examples. I can't see things on a phone, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly have a video meeting with them. Or I could even say screen share only. So that's snazzy there too. I'm going to stop, check our chat. I'm sure we have some questions in there. Coming up to Paul's question. What is the function of the remote control? That would be if you have a document like a PDF open on your screen and you needed somebody to sign it. So IEP meetings, 504 documents, or something where a parent needed to sign off, a permission form. It's physically on your computer screen, or I say electronically, and then you want them to sign. So then they're able to control your mouse and they're able to sign that document. That would be the purpose of remote control. Also, if you had virtual manipulatives and you had primary level students and you wanted them to move blocks and stack them or draw a shape. And so whatever program you have open on your screen, that participant can control. So it has many purposes. There's just two. And Kendra asks in our chat.
So,
oh, go ahead.
So that's not the same as them screen sharing. That's just for them to be able to move my mouse.
You got it. Absolutely. They move your mouse.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Kendra mentions or asks, did Zoom get the security settings fixed so they don't get hacked? And Kendra, I mean, that was a media spin. I'll just say it that way. It was a company who did have some security flaws, but the people who were posting their meetings, and I'm going to say, I just saw one the other day. It could have been a victim, but it wasn't. They got lucky. But I just saw a post on Facebook last week. Parents, join us for this Zoom meeting. They put on Facebook the Zoom meeting link. They had a passcode. They put the passcode on Facebook. That's all that was. People putting out too much information because they're trying to reach a broad audience who they're not interacting with through communication. They just were pushing out. They pushed too much. Another one is students. Students will say, hey, this is my teacher's Zoom meeting. Join us, and screw around with them. So that's why you might want to lock your meeting after your students are in. So it was partially user and the media spinning it out of control. It wasn't as bad as it really was. Jacqueline, I would assume that Ashlyn didn't purchase Zoom. You purchased Canvas. So no, Ashlyn is strictly Google Meet, but you can still use Zoom Basic if you're meeting with parents, if you want to have the free version. Check with your tech coordinator to make sure there's no ban against using Zoom. I mean, I don't know what every district has chosen, But no, I do not believe Ashland has purchased, and Canvas is a different tool. That is a learning management system for you to place your content. You would compare that with Schoology, Edmodo, Google Classroom, one of those. We're kind of talking apples and oranges there. So, oh goodness, it looks like we are at the 1 hour mark, and I've actually gone 2 minutes over. And I did not get into other settings. I want to find out from you who are participating. I'm going to clear all our responses. If you feel you can hang in there for another 10 minutes, you want to give me a yes and mark that. And I will keep recording because the recording didn't start right away at 10:30. So we're going to be able to get a full hour recording for anybody who has to leave. If you absolutely got to get out of here, give me a no. Okay, and I got one no. Be sure that you check the last 10 minutes of class through our recording when you get that. So sorry, Melissa and Neil and Tesley. You guys will just catch the last 10 minutes from our recording. Anybody else who hasn't responded yet, just feel like, hey, she said 10:30 or 11:30, I gotta go. I'm okay with that. If I need to squeeze in some more settings, because again, that's what this is about, getting your settings right from the start. So I'm gonna go here on the left. That was our meetings area. And if I wanna go ahead into settings, there's much, much more you guys can get into, but let's hit the big ones. Meeting settings. Waiting room, on. And you can see I have modified that. Make sure that is turned on. I'm gonna skip through because a lot of these we don't talk about. I'm not eliminating it because of time. I told you there's a lot of settings. I don't cover them all in a basic class. Again, when I'm scheduling my meetings, I like my host and participant video on. You control that. You can have that off. Same thing when I was setting up a meeting. I like phone and computer. Make sure join before host is off. Also, I'm the lazy person and I like using my personal meeting ID. I have that on. You choose what you want. But if you notice during the meeting, if I ever needed to turn that off, I had control when I was scheduling the meeting. And there we go. I even have that on when I schedule a meeting. Mute upon entry, yes. Saves you time, the classroom's nice and quiet. Just as if students would come into your room quietly, they're gonna come into this meeting quietly. Now under the basic area, if you want to disable the chat, right there it is. You can turn that off, no chat. Private, oh goodness, definitely have that off for your students. Adults, that's okay. Auto saving, that's very handy. So that way you get a digest. And if you're using the chat to have students check for engagement, like I have with my nonverbals, the nonverbals all disappear. I don't have a documentation. I could have used the chat to say, hey everybody, can you see my screen? Give me a yes in the chat. Hey everyone, are you ready to move forward? Give me a yes in the chat. Then I could look at that digest later to see and make sure throughout the class that my participants were engaged throughout the end. If I noticed somebody dropped off midway, they might have left their seat and I didn't know, but I'll catch that in my chat digest because I saved it. And so here's my sound notification when someone leaves. And I know we lost a few, we're down to 20. And I have it for host and co-host. You guys can't hear it. I don't have it on where you would hear. When you join by phone, this is just a prompt that asks them to record their voice. You can include a file transfer feature. Probably not necessary. You're going to have your materials in your LMS. If it's delivered in Google Classroom or Canvas or Progress Books Virtual Classroom. Moving down, if you want to allow a co-teacher to work alongside and join with you. You noticed earlier in the personal meeting room, I added Shelley. I also have to come here. So there's really two parts to having somebody co-host. I have to turn it on. Doesn't matter that I listed her if I don't toggle this on. Here's the polling feature, which I didn't get to show you, but again, I'm not too sad about that because I know it doesn't work for every device. And then let me go down, screen sharing. And these are where you set your defaults, but you could always change them on the fly later. Don't leave this as a default to be everybody because like right here, who can start when someone else, yikes. I actually need to probably change that. And the reason is you don't want them taking over the screen when you're presenting yours. Annotation is one. I've been in meetings where the girls were just scribbling on the screen. You might want to turn that off and then only enable it on the fly during your meeting when needed. Here's your whiteboard option and remote control option. If you do not turn on nonverbal feedback, nobody's going to see the raised hand, the yes, the no, the coffee break. Make sure you turn that one on, and as well as meeting reactions. And I told you that sometimes people still don't see that. Do you want to let people rename themselves? Yeah, because if they share a computer, the wrong name might pop in, like what happened with Barbie. This is the advanced section, and I'm going to wrap this up in this next minute here. Report participants to Zoom must have been default, but here's a feature called breakout rooms. We did a summer recording for breakout rooms, so if you want to, in our follow-up email and in the session description, I will have a link, in the recording description on YouTube, I will have a link that'll take you to all of our videos. We've been doing all of our classes. You can learn about breakout rooms on your own. They're very good, and it's a very nice tool if you want to do some things on the fly. So you can choose to turn that on. And let's go down to the end. There's where you can control virtual background. Remember, that's going to drain on your internet and on your participants' internet. So you can force that off and not let anybody use them. And that way maybe their connections are guaranteed a little more. And I think we're close. There it is. If you know parents don't have something, they don't have Zoom installed, go ahead and turn this on, and it gives them the option to join from their browser. If a student is on a home computer and they have to have their parents' permission to install something, no fear, join from browser will be listed. So that's where I'm stopping. Many more settings, but right now, those are the basics to get you started. To be safe, you got to practice a little bit with using the tools yourself in the nonverbals and the chat. So at this point, I'm going to stop our recording and I'll take some questions off the record, if you want to think of it that way, if anyone wants to hang around. But otherwise, you won't hurt my feelings if you leave this meeting. And I wish you a great day.